right, my friends, welcome back. This is going to be part six of my presentation of the flood and Noah's Ark. And what I want to do is I want to just touch on something on the previous video that I did, where we were looking at a video from the Travel Channel way back in the year 2000. It was over 24 years ago when I recorded it. And I showed that video. If you guys haven't had a chance to see that, check that out. It's very revealing about what they found through the mitochondrial DNA in humans in correlation with a catastrophic event in the past that supposedly made us almost go extinct. And so, but I want to throw out something also, because in that one video, that clip, it stated that what they saw was that DNA across the world, all humans, is remarkably similar, very similar, and they thought that it was very intriguing to them, and so since what they stated was that since humans have been on the earth for so long. And so now I'm using the secular timeline. If you'll notice on the screen here, this is the geologic time scale. If you'll notice at the top, the evolution of humans was 1.8 to 5.6 million years ago. And so 1.8 to 5.6 million years. And so that was the timeline of the evolution theory. It's a huge gap. It's a huge gap of time that they theorized, because it didn't happen. I'll just say that it didn't happen. So, but you guys, I mean, that is the dates. That is the dates that I've been given. That 1.8 to 5.6 million years ago, we started evolving from the chimpanzees. We broke away from the chimpanzees. And so what they're saying is, by the time, is the length of time that we've been on this planet, there should be more diversity than what's here already, and that our DNA is remarkably similar. They put that into question. And so now I'm just throwing this out also, that, well, one reason why our DNA is remarkably similar is because we have not been on the planet, well, for 1.8 to 5.6 million years ago. We haven't. The world, by the biblical timeline, is only 6,000 years old. We've only been on this planet for about 6,000 years. That's the reason why our DNA is remarkably similar. Now, what they're stating in the video is that by looking at the mitochondrial DNA, it's like a record of our past. And so if they really did see a diversity in the past, and then all of a sudden there was a bottleneck and then it branched out again, then that's the flood. But if they're only looking at the fact that our DNA is so remarkably similar, then that is because we weren't on this planet by their timeline millions of years ago. We've only been on the planet for 6,000 years ago. And the mutation rate would not be near as great. Now, again, we're going to come back to this again way later on in the presentation. If we were on the planet, as long as what the evolutionary timeline gives us millions of years ago, if we've been evolving for millions of years ago from the chimpanzees, what would it be like as far as the mutation rates? And what kind of effect would that have on us now? But because that we've only been on the planet for only 6,000 years, and before the flood, the world was much different than it is now, you're not going to get near the problems that we have now as far as atmosphere, nutritional aspects, the degrading of the DNA, the mutations and stuff like that from 4,400 years ago up until now. And so it's still a short amount of time. So we're still doing pretty good. But each generation gets worse and worse from here on. And again, we will touch on that again later on in the presentation. I'm just kind of touching base on that. But just to give you, just to reiterate, going back to that video again, I just wanted to throw that thought to you, is that they're having a problem with the fact that our DNA all over the planet is remarkably similar, and that is because we only came from two people 6,000 years ago. And so, but if in the mitochondrial DNA that they do show that at one time there was a diversification that was greater than it is now, and then all of a sudden there was a bottleneck, and then it diversified again, then that is your flood. That is the evidence for the flood in our mitochondrial DNA. Now, this gentleman here is Immanuel Velikovsky. Immanuel Velikovsky. Now, we're going to talk about him. You'll see me mention him from time to time in the presentation, especially at the beginning aspects of this. And so, but I want you guys, some of you real thinkers out there, to really remember this guy's name. And anytime you see anything by him, a book or a interview, there are interviews with him on YouTube. You can go to YouTube and watch interviews with this gentleman here. There's some audiobooks that I just realized that was in existence, and I am going to try to get these books. And so, but he wrote this book here and a number of others, which I'll show you here in just a minute. Earth in Upheaval. Earth in Upheaval. Now, these two books here, Earth in Upheaval and Worlds in Collision, I got back in my early stages of getting into the creation. And so if you'll notice here, these are those books. And so this is one of them. It's a thick book, guys. I mean, we're talking, this is 400 pages, little tiny, little small writing. I mean, it's packed full of information. This guy is extremely interesting. But this is one of them here that I got, Worlds in Collision. Now, this is before the internet got to be as popular as it is now. These are those two books here. And I had to go on, I had to actually get up with people through a phone and just hunting, getting up at old bookstores. And I actually ordered this because the book is not in print anymore. You have to go to antique bookstores to get this. And so, but I got this baby just tabbed up. And all right, let's look at some notes about Dr. Immanuel Velikovsky. He was born in 1895. He died in 1979. He was a Jew by nationality, but he was born in Russia to a wealthy Jewish family. He was the youngest of three brothers. He married a violinist and sculptor. I'm going to try that. It's Elisheva Kramer, and they had two daughters. He mastered several languages during his childhood. He excelled in mathematics and Russian and graduated in 1913 with a gold medal. Whenever I hear that, I think of the Olympics, but I guess they give them gold medals when they graduate, so I'm not sure. He obtained a medical degree from the University of Moscow in 1921. He started editing and translating scientific papers into Hebrew at Scripta Universitatis, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, journal, a project which played a major role in establishing the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. He was a psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst. He authored several books which went against the popular theory of uniformity. He suggested that the Earth and other planets were subject to catastrophes during historical times. These catastrophes were recorded by oral traditions, myth, and legends from people around the world, including the Bible. Though he stated he was not a fundamentalist. Now, that word fundamentalist, for you guys that don't know, it means someone who believes in the strict literal interpretation of Scripture. So you would consider me, Donnie as a fundamentalist. If you believe the Bible, if you're a Bible believer and you believe the Bible is written and you believe it as it is and it's a literal interpretation, you're a fundamentalist. Let's see. He said that he wasn't a fundamentalist and he was not trying to prove that the Bible was right. He wasn't trying to prove that. In Mankind in Amnesia, this is a book that he wrote in 1982, Velikovsky draws on his training as a psychiatrist and psychoanalyst to propose his theory of collective amnesia to explain the inability of people to look at the overwhelming evidence of global catastrophes. I tell you what, I agree with him there. And there's so much evidence to it. But these are the books that I have found that he's read. I'm sure he's probably wrote all types of articles. But Immanuel Velikovsky, after suffering from diabetes and intermittent depression, get that, guys, intermittent depression, he died on November 17th, 1979, at his home in Princeton, New Jersey, at the age of 84. And so now the books that I was able to find was Ages in Chaos, Earth in Upheaval, Worlds in Collision, Peoples of the Sea, Ramses II and His Time, and Mankind in Amnesia. And so I'm telling you right now, I do want to get the Mankind in Amnesia one for sure, because I really would like to see some of the trials that he went through during his time. And so that one right there, he kind of nails kind of some of the struggles he went through when he was publishing his work and stuff like that. And so, but guys, I tell you what, let's stop right there. I actually had intended on continuing on. There's some other things, but that's okay. We're going to pick it up next time. Again, want to keep these as bite-sized as possible and let you guys chew on this information. And so, but Immanuel Velikovsky is a fascinating individual. He's considered a genius. And one of his friends was Albert Einstein. They actually worked together where, if I remember correctly, where Immanuel Velikovsky was translating his scientific papers, Albert Einstein also worked in that area or worked in that building or maybe the company, but he worked with him. But Albert Einstein worked in the mathematics department of that, if my mind serves me correctly. But they became friends. And from what I understand, when Albert Einstein died, he had on his bed an open book by Immanuel Velikovsky. And so Albert Einstein evidently found Immanuel Velikovsky extremely intriguing. And so, but you can learn a lot from him. And so, but fascinating fella. I mean, again, I'm going to talk about him more later on, but it's just amazing some of the things that he's been able. He talks a lot about the Bible and how certain events in the Bible, like the long day of Joshua, for instance, has been correlated through other cultures around the world, either through a long day or a long night. And so, fascinating. But again, we're still going to get into so many things that he's been able to drum up through other cultures that supports the Bible, and the evidence that the historical evidence that it talks about. And so, but you guys take care. I love you, and I hope the Lord blesses you real good. Bye-bye.